Hi dreamers, I'm very excited about going over this month's update because I have hit a milestone of over $200,000 in investment passive income this year to date. And I also can't wait to tell you what I've done with options this month as I've gone back to basics and it really paid off. So without further ado, today I'll review the end of the month totals where I'll show you my dividend and options income. And this month I made over $22,000. Let's take a look at the detail. So first let's take a trip down memory lane. And I wanted to show you what my October 2021 dividends looked like. And you can see here it was $4,603. And I ended the fourth quarter in 2021 with about $13,000 in dividends. Then if we fast forward to the end of 2022, you can see I made $9,420. And a big part of that was just rotating from growth stocks into dividend stocks. And I ended the fourth quarter in 2022 with over $20,000 in dividends. And then as we go into 2023, I made $10,708 in dividends. And I ended the fourth quarter in 2023 with over $24,546. And so here we are in October of 2024. And if you've been watching me for a while, you know my strategy has changed quite a bit over the last 2 years as I've been fine-tuning and adding in a lot more of the progressive derivative income funds. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the first month I have broken $11,000 just in dividends with $11,058 neat. So let's take a look at the detail of this particular strategy. And so you can see how that $11,000 was broken up over the weeks, with a huge amount coming in week 1 with over $5,000, just over $700 in week 2, about $1,000 in week 3, $3,000 in week 4, and another $1,000 in week 5. So here's how that looked. It started out with a couple of Vanguard growth funds, VIG and VGT, which I don't really hold for the dividends, but more as a growth play. Then I got $8 from GPC, which I've held for a very long time. Just about $100 from McKesson, which as you'll see, I took advantage of the significant price drop lately. And so 100 shares of this is actually based on a cash secured put that exercised that I'm now wheeling back and forth. I got almost $300 from VNQ, $124 from SLF, and then here you see those PIMCO products of PDI and PTY that together produced almost $1,700. Then I got my first payment of Devo, which I recently did a dedicated video about and is one of my absolute favorite funds. I got $205 from Maine and a whopping $2,621 from my favorite derivative income ETF fund, JEPQ, which I've done copious videos about. And then rounding out week 1, you see the Roundhill funds here of XDTE and QDTE, which are the daily derivative ETFs that I also did a dedicated video on. So I got $58 from that, and you'll see that reoccurring every single week. I got $8 from YMAG, which is the only yield max fund I hold, and then $17 from a relatively small new position of NEAR, a bond fund. Going into week 2, you'll see $37 from iSpy, which is the ProShares derivative income ETF that I'm kind of liking and I'm adding a little bit to over time, followed by about $620 from the Goldman products of GPIX and GPIQ. Then I got $47 from Getty, a REIT, and another $53 from those weekly Roundhill funds. And I also made a post recently about how YieldMax has changed some of their funds to also be weekly, which includes YMAG. And then going into week 3, you see some additional REITs. $18 from FRT, $38 from Stag. I got $51 from Cardinal Health, $120 from Realty Income, $91 from WPC, $168 from Maine, $531 from STWD, a REIT I've held for years, and another $69 from these weekly funds. As we roll into week 4, you see a brand new position for me on MU, Micron Tech, and I might actually do a dedicated video on some of the new growth positions that I'm taking bets on. And then here you see the Neos monthly products, where I got over $2,800 from QQQI, IWMI, and SPYI, which I've also done some dedicated videos on. And that's followed by the Round Hill and YieldMax weekly funds, plus another bond fund that I've taken a small position on, BSCQ. And that takes us to week 5, where I got $47 from Canadian Imperial Bank, and then about $375 from basically just interest on holding cash inside of money markets. I got $112 from SVOL, over $500 from Devo and QDVO, which was part of that recent video I did, explaining how QDVO is very similar to Devo in its curated strategic approach. And then I ended the month with just a few dollars from purely SPY and QQQ. And that's what brings us to the $11,058 neat. Now, I'll probably do a full portfolio review video soon, and I'll explain some of the additional rotations and optimizations that I'll want to make on my portfolio soon. But right now, I'm pretty happy with the mix that I have with more broad-based indexes, derivative ETFs, and continuing to hold some strategic individual REIT and company stocks. So let's go to the options side and show you how I made over $11,000 there this month. Alright, so taking a look at my options. Last year, you can see in October of 2023, I made $4,007 in options. And I ended Q4 2023 with $8,401 in option income. And the last couple months, as you know, I've made about $5,000 in options income. And part of that was just me being more conservative with my options strategy. And the other part of it was just that I had some health concerns that I was paying a little bit more attention to. And if there's anything I want to hammer home to you guys, it's that my dividend income continues to be completely and totally passive, whereas the options income really does require more hands-on research and management of them. And so when you have less time, it can affect the amount you can make in any given month. And so here we are in October 2024, and I had a lot more time to pay attention to my options. So I made over $11,225, which was pretty much equivalent to what I made in all of August and September. So what did I do? Well, what's incredible about this actually is that I only have leveraged about $100,000 for my cash secured puts, which is much less than the $200,000 that I normally use. I sold 78 contracts, I had 9 assigned, 14 expired, but the vast majority, 57, I actually bought to close, which by the way, if you're curious on how to do, I've made a dedicated video on that. And so how did I make so much more money on a lot less cash set aside? Well, there are a couple of things I would say. One is I made more pointed, riskier strategic bets in very small places, such as MU, AMD, McKesson, and Visa. And if you're curious on what I mean by strategic bets and how I go through that thought process, I recently made a video on my strategic bet and in the money option on Visa. So take a look at that if you're interested. And the second part of why I was more successful in October was that I went back to basics. And so what does that mean? It means I was much more mindful of creating covered calls on my existing portfolio. Because although I only used $100,000 for cash secured puts, I still have an almost $2 million portfolio to leverage. And so I was creating covered calls on things like VNQ, Pepsi, Google, SLF, BTI, Duke, CTAS, CAH, and Microsoft. And in terms of the leveraged options, I did a lot less, almost none, on SOXL, TNA, and when I did do leveraged, I used more broad tickers like TQQQ and SPXL. But the last thing I wanted to say was just my options management. I spent a lot more time in front of the screen, I would say between 2 and 4 hours, instead of pretty much almost none over the last 2 months. And that just means more manhandling to take advantage of volatility, those significant up and down days, where I would buy to close as soon as we got to 70 to 80%, wait for the next day for the rise, and then create another call. And so that was the magic of what I did in October, continuing to stick with my overall strategy of low delta, covered calls, and cash secured puts on high quality long-term stocks. I leveraged a greater percentage of my total portfolio, especially because I think we're a little high right now. And so the benefit of creating covered calls, in my opinion, is a little less risky, and spending a little more time researching upfront, such as the Visa example, and then actively managing the open options, as you can see with the 57 that I bought to close. And so with that, let's take a look at everyone's favorite chart, that cumulative passive income chart. And so here's the cumulative investment income chart. And you can see in blue, as of October of 2022, I had made over $64,236 in dividends. And in orange, you can see my total cumulative dividends was just over $80,000. And here we are in 2024. My total dividends so far this year is $91,391. And then, as you know, I started learning options in January of 2023. And by October of 2023, my cumulative investment income was just over $124,000. But guys, 2 years later, I am a much more sophisticated options trader, making it possible for me to pass a huge milestone that I've never passed before. And so here it is, as of October 2024, I've made over $200,000 in passive investment income, hitting $207,076. And I'm really going to try to put the pedal to the metal the last 2 months to see how far I can push this income. And just as a reminder, I am actively living on this income and withdrawing every single month, with pretty high expenses of over $100,000 annually. So the last thing I wanted to say was just to leave you with this. If you're someone who's just come across my channel or just come across my content on X, and you're looking at my information thinking, this is daunting. There's no way I'm going to reach these levels. There's no way I'm going to learn options. And I'm too fearful to put this amount of money into the market. I want to just remind you of one thing. 20 years ago, I was just a woman in her 20s with absolutely no assets and no capital or starter money to even think about generating a cash flow like this. I've had absolutely no guide, no investment help, no parent to teach me how to do this. I am completely self-taught and manage my portfolio 100% by myself. And it's taken me 20 years of really focusing and learning how to do this. So if I started from scratch and created this methodology and system by myself, my greatest hope is that by you watching these videos, that you too will start to get the confidence, the knowledge, and some of the skill set to be able to make this a reality. Because even if you love what you do, or have 10, 20, or 30 years left of ample working time, creating a safety net and a passive income cash machine like this gives you a sense of freedom and confidence. And with that, let me give a shout out to one of my favorite followers on X, Master P, who recently gave me a reminder that because of some of the content that he's seen on this channel, he's reached the levels that I am at by simply rethinking his strategy. So with that, I hope it's been an inspirational moment for you to seriously think about sitting down with your investment portfolio and plotting out what passive income goals you would like to project by the end of this year, 2025 and 2026. Come on guys, let's go higher and higher together. Let me know what you think in the comment. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this dividend income update. And if you want a richer, real-time experience with me, you can always follow me on Instagram or X. And if you're doing your own research using Seeking Alpha, feel free to find the link below to subscribe if you want, no pressure. As always, I encourage you to do your own research, then implement and learn by putting it into practice. And as a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, so keep in mind these videos are for entertainment and inspiration only. I'll see you on the flip side.